All right, well, good afternoon. Welcome to our panel on cabinetry for furniture makers. I'm Kyle Barton. I'm with the MWA Podcast, and I'll be moderating our discussion here. And joining us today are two outstanding cabinet makers, Blake Rawlings and Marvin Alleyne. Did I get that right?
Yes, you did.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, and they're here to share their extensive experience and insights on custom cabinetry. But before we get to that, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into cabinet making.
I started pushing a shop, like a broom in a shop, when I was 16. And so I'm 37 now, so it's been about 20 plus years of working in and cabinet shops and other furniture and millwork firms and things like that.
Marvin, what about yourself?
All right. Well, I basically started out where everyone does, as an apprentice.
A little closer.
As an apprentice doing installations. Once you start there, you kind of see easier ways of getting things done. So that's kind of how I got into building my own cabinets.
Well, fantastic. We'll keep it with you, Marvin. Do you consider cabinets to be furniture?
Absolutely. You can make a piece that can last forever, or you can make a piece look invisible in your home. So that's kind of the art of deciding which direction you want to go.
Yeah, I agree.
Um, I don't know. I don't necessarily think of cabinets as furniture. I think of furniture as furniture and cabinets as cabinets, but I think there's plenty of overlap in both ways, and I think there's ways to go about designing and building cabinets to maybe that use different, furniture methods or furniture pieces that get attached to cabinets. But yeah, I think for the most part, there's a huge difference between a dining room table and a
Right.
lowers in the kitchen.
Well, so y'all are both professional cabinet makers. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things you've done and what is the one tip you would give to a fellow cabinet maker out there? Someone just starting out.
Take your time in every aspect of the job, whether it's the design, take as much time as you can to make sure that you've wrapped your head around it, understand design fully in your head. Take your time when you're doing your cut listing and your takeoffs. Take your time when you're building, take your time when you're edge banding, take your time when you're installing, because those little problems that you'll find along the way just grow exponentially. And if you have a small cabinet shop and you've already done your cutout for the job and you moved on to your next step, sometimes it's difficult to go back and do cutout or purchase more materials or things like that. So my biggest tip for everybody would be take your time, be methodical, and stick with it.
So what would be your tip, Marvin?
I think I'll double up on what he said. It seems easy to just kind of quickly want to go through it and to make sure you think you have it done. But like he said, when you double check, it's very hard to go back and correct things. Like, for instance, I've made a mistake recently, one of the projects I've done, where I forgot to add a filler on my design for the refrigerator because I wasn't sure what the client was going to use. And at the end of it, I had to move and 2 inches this way because it couldn't open up against the wall. So kind of those areas is where you want to double check and triple check to make sure you're doing it right.
That makes perfect sense. So tell us a little bit about how you price your work and, doing pricing for cabinet bids.
Well, for instance, I'm not a traditional cabinet shop maker where I do not have a shop. I work out of my van. I'm all festool. I can come set up in your garage with all of my tools, and I can be as less. It doesn't cost me the same that it would a normal cabinet shop guy. I don't have to travel I get the things delivered on site. So it makes it a lot easier for me to do adjustments. So a lot of the simple mistakes that you would have to get a job from one place to the next, I don't have to really deal with that. So it makes it a little easier for me to just come set up and get it done.
Okay, cool. Blake, same question to you.
Pricing cabinets is really difficult. For a while I was just doing linear footage, and then I moved to cubic inches, to get a really more or much better idea of exactly how much material I have to use. But a lot of times lately, it's just trying to work within the client's budget and what they can afford. We can value engineer things and to work within a budget. I also built my own software, basically, where I can type in the linear footage of lowers, linear footage of uppers and tower units, how many drawers, how many handles, and it will spit out a pretty good estimate of how much it's going to take me to build that.
Interesting. Are you now, when you're doing that type of work and pricing these bids, are you using metric or imperial?
I use imperial.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really? Because
Yeah.
I was talking to Marvin. I know he's all in the 32 millimeter European system.
I think it's bad habits. I started in an imperial shop. It makes sense to me. It's hard for me to switch over to metric now.
Well, cool. Well, there's been some stigma around the woodworking community about cabinet building, and it's like, is this really fine furniture or not? But when you look at some people like Nancy Hiller and some of the work she's done, it's absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous stuff. So how do you balance the need to make simple economic cabinets while making something that really feels special for your clients?
I mean, it's like he said, it really determines budget. It's very simple. There's so many options now that everyone have choice. So it's kind of more or less of filling that void for the client. I think a lot of people need to take that into consideration. Every client is not for everyone. A certain client will appreciate something different, and you just have to be able to fill the void where it's for you. Everyone doesn't have the budget that you would all like, and you're not there. It's not really about your budget. It's but you being able to execute what the client really needs. So you just really have to be patient. It's not a money grab. It's a chore. It's a hobby. It's love, and it's also making sure the client is happy at the end of the day.
Okay, makes sense.
I'm sorry. Let me read that question again.
Basically, what are you doing to make some economical choices and still make the stuff feel like a custom piece?
I mean, I think it all really, the stigma between woodworkers and cabinet makers is, I think it's a funny thing to even think about. I'm a furniture maker and a cabinet maker. I make furniture. Cabinetry pays the bills and allows me to make furniture pieces. And I don't know any real furniture maker who hasn't made cabinets in the past or does that as well. So I think it's kind of weird to lump those two, or to put them together. But you can be as economical as you want in your design and your materials. If the execution is good, if your tolerances are really tight, and you execute everything really well, it will look really, really well and look intended. So that's just an easy way to keep things cheaper, is be better at your work.
Well, let's stay with you, Blake. So next question is about what are the biggest disadvantages a hobbyist woodworker is going to have when compared to someone like you, a cabinet shop making cabinets? Because I know as woodworkers we think, oh, we need new kitchen cabinets. Well, I can do that.
Right.
Can I?
Right. You can. I mean, building cabinets, you're just building boxes, and if you get good at building one kind of box, you can expand on that and then move into building drawer boxes and building, more advanced cabinet boxes, I guess. Biggest disadvantage to try to do it yourself is space. Sheet goods are big, unwieldy. They take up a lot of room. They're probably the biggest headache and the biggest barrier for entry for most hobbyist woodworkers is breaking down sheet goods. And doing
just
the cutout
moving them
itself,
around.
and just moving them around. And then also, if you're doing a cabinet job, you're rarely making one cabinet. So after you've cut out everything and start building the cabinets, then you have to have places to store those cabinets while you're building everything else. So
Good point.
it's just kind of space over everything else. And trying to build, a kitchen, it's not that it can't be done, but trying to build a kitchen's worth of cabinets in a 2-car garage would be really, really difficult.
Yeah. So Marvin, what about yourself?
Yeah, I think it's a great misconception. People seeing how easy it may look with a sped up video or just somebody that's a professional. I think you just need to, like he said, just take it one step at a time. If you build 2-3 cabinets and you feel manageable, like then you can expand on that. But don't jump into it thinking that, oh, I'll have this done in 2 weeks, because your 2 weeks can turn into a month, and then you end up having a angry spouse. So let's just try to pace ourselves.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, that's one of the things I think I talked to both of y'all before we started. Is like, yeah, I'm thinking about doing new cabinets, but I think I've convinced myself, especially after talking to y'all, yeah, I just need to hire someone to get it done. So, what kind of finish do y'all use? Now, are you using pre-finished sheet goods in your stuff?
I am. I
Yeah.
strictly use pre-finished products. A lot of veneers, a lot of veneers, because there's so many options. And I think it's for me in particular that don't want to spray on site. Not saying that I can't. I do have the capabilities to, but I choose not to.
Right.
I use a lot of pre-finished stuff because it's a very simpler process. And me coming to a location, it means that I can now control that aspect of it, where I don't want to go into saying, now I need to spray at your property and do this. It's not something that I'm willing to do.
Yeah.
And I think there is so much options out there where you can mix like a solid white or a gray with some veneer or something and it really comes out really good.
Okay.
Like 90% of the boxes I build, the interior, the carcass itself, I build out of using pre-finished maple ply or birch ply. Any paint that I use, I don't paint myself. I have a finisher that I sub out for my paint. That's all a shop applied finish. He has a great booth. Finishes that I do in my shop, any Rubio Monocoat or oils, rub, even just some like clear coating. I'll do that, a UV lacquer in my shop like that. I also work a lot with milk paint. That's something that I use a lot in my shop.
Okay.
I like it. It's really easy to get into, really easy to use, really easy to thin and figure out exactly what you need to get a really good look.
Yeah. So what are you top coating your milk paint with?
Sometimes I don't. Sometimes
Okay.
the customer wants it to patina, but sometimes it's just a shell coating over the top of that later. With,
yeah. And then the color changes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you always have to give them a sample with both on
Exactly.
there so they know.
Well, fantastic. Before we wrap up here, are there any questions from the audience? Yes.
One thing that I'm like learning as a just solo furniture maker is like you don't have to do everything yourself. There's like people that can do things better and faster. And so you already mentioned like you outsource painting. What other things do you outsource? Or what would you recommend to someone like me in terms of like what things should I outsource to a cabinet maker? What would make sense?
I think starting off, I think it's best to not outsource anything. I think once you start off, you should try to do everything yourself and learn what your capabilities are. I outsource all my painting. If it's a product that needs painting, I have an incredible finisher with a great finish booth. If I were to invest in my own finish booth, I would have to, my shop would have to expand by another couple thousand square foot. I'd need to purchase all new sorts of tooling, whether that's cup guns and compressors and inline dryers for the airlines. It's just something that I've known for me that it's easier and more economical for me to sub that out. It does suck to have to like pack up all my cabinets and all the drawers and all the fronts and then deliver them to my finisher, then pick them up when they're done and then go install them. But I'll take that headache over actually spraying them any day of the week. I also sub out some of my installs. If there's an install that's going to last more than a few days, I'll sub that out. My time's more valuable to me in my own shop. That's where I make my money. But yeah, if it's a smaller install, like maybe a small kitchen or something like that, I'll knock that out myself. But anything over a few days, I'm gonna sit that one out.
Well, kind of like what he said, as far as you have to know your limitations. before you start something, so you can feel comfortable about doing it. A lot of times you can get in the middle of a job and get frustrated because you're not getting the results you want. So you have to learn how to hand it off to keep to keep comfortable with what you're doing.
All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, is there a particular brand of hardware that either you prefer or brands of hardware that we should definitely stay away from?
Yeah. I mean, I typically source all of my hardware, whether it's, kind of European hinges and undermount glides, things like that, all through Hafele. Bloom products are incredible. I'd stick to those. I don't buy anything off of Amazon. That's a really good, hard and fast rule you can live by. They're usually really cheap, or they're cheaply made, but they're way more expensive through Amazon. So find a reputable hardware dealer like Hafele or Bloom or Sugasune or something like that, and stick with those.
Like he said, Hefela's been around for a very long time. We are fortunate to have a lot of dealers that are close. I actually know the dealer here in Austin, and he could reach out, and it's just a product that if there's an issue with it, that someone will be able to reach out to you, and their delivery time is excellent, and they're just there to be able to make sure that you're comfortable with the product and you'll be fine. So don't, like he said, don't go cheap. Just go with your consistent when it comes to something like that.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? All right, well, before we wrap up, tell folks where they can find you on the interwebs. We'll start with you, Marvin.
Well, you can get in contact with me at my Instagram is European Kitchen Installation. That's my #1 brand. But I also have a YouTube channel where I share little tips and tricks and show what I've been doing on the job so far. Also have a website. So you can just reach out, for any question, any installation, any small jobs, or whatever you may need.
I have a website, littledillo.com. Little Dillo Woodworks is my company. And Instagram, you can find me there. I also teach cabinetry making at the Austin School of Furniture. We have some great courses over there if you're interested in that.
And like I said, my name's Kyle Barton. You can always find me on Instagram at barton.kyle or at the MWA Podcast. So before I let y'all go, I do want to make an announcement. For those on the educational track, Laura Kishimoto is having her bent lamination course starting at 4:30, so make sure you make your way up there.